You love Bear Lake for sandy beaches, fun on the water, and amazing milkshakes. Well, the fun hits overdrive this week for Raspberry Days. The parade, craft fair, and games, live music, rodeos, and fireworks. There is something everyone will enjoy this weekend in Bear Lake. And of course, raspberry shakes and delicious food on almost every corner in Garden City. Go to bearlake.org for a schedule of events. Come on up this weekend to beautiful Bear Lake for Raspberry Days.
Everyone can help keep our roads safe. When I'm driving my truck, I'll remember to check my mirrors for smaller vehicles. And when you're on the road, try to avoid lingering in my blind spots. Let's all plan to share the road safely. Visit www.sharetheroadsafely.gov.
Meningococcal disease can be devastating. Visit nmaus.org.
News Talk 610 AM 102.1 FM KVNU.
It's time for the Garden Guide with your host, Mark Anderson from Anderson Seed and Garden.
New research suggests that people are more likely to eat vegetables if they have a tempting name.
What would life be without homegrown tomatoes? Only two things that money can't buy, and that's true love and homegrown tomatoes.
From gardening to landscaping.
Today we are going to try and create garden eyebrows. Kind of like the flowers are sprouting directly from your hair. That makes sense.
Phone lines are open at 753-KVNU or 800-369-KVNU.
Kind of like eating vegetables.
It's the Garden Guide, now on KVNU 610 AM and 102 FM.
And we welcome you to the show on this beautiful Saturday morning as we're enjoying some sunshine after the storm last night. And wow, what a storm it was.
We've been getting a lot of those.
Yeah. It's like Mother Nature just keeps saying, oh, you think you've seen it all? How about this?
Here's another one. Yeah.
So, yeah, and of course, we're watching, especially some areas over in Box Elder County, it's just been flooded.
Yes.
And so, now we're looking and hoping that we might be able to dry out a little bit. But we'll see.
Kind of looks like it, yeah. Thought it was going to be dry yesterday.
Yeah.
And then we were driving back from Salt Lake last night, and we just watched the storm just like roll in across the valley on the other side of the mountain. And then as we got through Sardine Canyon, you could see the lightning strikes and everything starting to hit. So we knew it was coming.
Yeah. Yeah, it was not on the National Weather Service's radar, that's for sure, until about 6:45, 7 o'clock. I started to see some warnings for it. So
it's that time of year where that monsoonal moisture is kind of kicking up from the south, and so we can have thunder showers pretty much any time. So that's great, though. That's nice. But what a lot of people don't realize is how much water we've gotten in the last week. So, half an inch last night?
Almost a half inch last night. Add that to the inch and a half that we had before that, plus a little bit before. Yeah. So altogether, about two full inches.
2 inches, in this week. So you know what that means. You don't need to turn your sprinklers on.
Yeah.
For a week.
At least to turn them off. There's no reason.
For a week. So we actually, I think it was Tuesday, we turned our sprinklers off on Tuesday and just have let Mother Nature take care of it. But really, an inch of water per week is what your lawn and garden really needs to be fully watered and have what it needs. So we've got at least a week's worth of water out of this storm, if not a little bit longer. So we will probably not turn ours on again until midweek next week. So,
and if you haven't been out into your garden or out into your yard, you'll notice the ground is just saturated, at least in and around the bottom of the valley here. It's just soaked.
Yeah, which is great. The plants are going to love it. Yeah. I mean, plants are going to go crazy. Your lawn's going to perk right back up it was pretty hot in July, and so to have this much water in the first part of August and cooler temperatures as well too, because we've got looks like 80s for the next week or so. Your plants will really, really respond. Yeah, they'll be looking great.
And the weeds will too. So we'll be talking about that a little bit this morning. Great time to be able to start looking ahead and doing some more planting.
Right. So this is early part of August is the best time to start planting cold crops. And since we did not have much of a spring to be able to plant cold crops, since we had snow on the ground through March and most of April, a lot of people didn't plant their spinach and their lettuce and their radishes and their peas because they just couldn't. It was like almost Mother's Day by the time you could start planting anything because it was so wet. And so a lot of people just kind of skipped over that. Here's your opportunity to plant all those crops again. So first part of August, most of those cool crops take about 50 to 60 days to produce. And so you plant them now, they'll be coming on the end of September when we'll have cooler temperatures, and the plants will love it. So lettuce, spinach, radishes, peas for sure. We have enough time for chard. We have enough time for a new crop of beets and carrots before the weather really changes. So this is a really good time to plant those kales, all the kale family, mustards. This is a really great time to plant those. Even if it turns hot the latter part of August, which is more than likely we're going to get some more 90s in there, so you can count on it. But they'll handle it, and they will be maturing when the weather's cooler. End of September, 1st of October, it'll be perfect.
Okay. So,
really good time.
Great time to jump on the fall crops.
Yeah.
Plus, also, still a great time to be able to plant trees and shrubs.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And we have our cash sale going on at Anderson Seed and Garden right now. So, with the cash sale, it is regular discount is going to be 15% for all of our remaining trees. That includes flowering trees, shade trees, fruit trees, all of our flowering shrubs, evergreens, our vines, what we've got left over. 15% off, but if you pay with cash, you'll get an additional 10% off. So if you get that cash discount by paying with the old-fashioned green stuff, cash, you'll get that extra 10% on top of the 15% that we're already offering. So 25% off, and I've got a really great selection of all kinds of trees. The fruit trees look amazing. We've just got a great selection of fruit trees in stock right now, and they're nice and big. A lot of them have fruit on them already. So good time to get out there and get those planted, especially with the cooler temperatures. So this is a perfect time to get out and do some planting while we've got low 80s, mid 80s instead of mid 90s, closer to 100. Perfect time to be out there and do some planting. And you could take advantage of the cash sale right now, too.
Especially if we can continue to see some of these moisture storms come through.
Yeah.
Just really helps those roots to take off.
Makes them go like crazy. And then things are progressing very nicely for the Giant Pumpkin Festival. So that will be coming up the 23rd of September. So the ball's rolling. We've got a lot of fun activities planned. But the Giant Pumpkin Growers of Northern Utah will be there, and they'll be weighing their giant pumpkins. So last year, I think they had 25 entries, and they ranged between 500 and 1,800 pounds. So we're going to have a lot of really big pumpkins there.
1,800 pounds.
Yeah. So 2 years ago, they had one that was over 2,000. So they've had some really big pumpkins the last few years. So we are anticipating some great entries, and anticipating anywhere between 25 and 30 giant pumpkins will be there. So this will be right on Center Street on the 23rd of September. We'll be weighing all those giant pumpkins, but there'll be a lot of other stuff going on as well too. So the city's going to be doing their ribbon cutting for the new plaza down there on Center Block, and the Gardeners Market will be going as well too. We'll have a little vendor market and food trucks going at the Giant Pumpkin Festival, and a lot of activities for kids. So there'll be a whole bunch of kids activities. We'll be doing free movies at the Utah Theater. We should have a professional photographer there. We'll have artists all over the street there on Center Street doing art, and just a lot of really fun things going on for the Pumpkin Festival. So make sure and get that on your calendar, the 23rd of September, Center Street Giant Pumpkin Festival, where we'll be crowning the new Center Street Giant.
Yeah. Shutting down Center Street, which is always fun.
Yep. And we anticipate a lot of activities going on, and music, all kinds of fun things.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Coming up towards the end of September.
You'll be able to come in and just kind of wander in through the giant pumpkins. We'll have them all in one spot, so you can come in and just check out the pumpkins. We'll call it the Giant Pumpkin Walk, and you can check those out. But we'll have the artists going, and we'll have a lot of activities for the kids to do. So the Logan Library is going to come and do story time. We've got free movies going at the Utah Theater. We'll have a couple different activities, probably some face painting, and we're still working on a couple of the fun activities for the kids. But it should be a blast just to come and watch them weigh those really giant pumpkins.
Huge.
So should be a lot of fun.
Great.
Yeah. So such a good time, and it's a perfect time to just come hang out down on Center Street, and we'll have the street decorated with pumpkins and hopefully some corn stalks and hay bales and all kinds of cool stuff for fall. It'll make it really feel like fall.
Great.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun.
A lot of great events coming up. We want to take your calls, too. If you have questions for Mark this morning, 753-5868, 1-800-369-5868, answering your questions about gardening, your lawn. One of the questions that I got last night as I was walking around the neighborhood is, what's the deal with all of the dragonflies? People are like, these dragonflies are all over. And I said, don't kill them.
Oh, no.
We need to keep those dragonflies.
The dragonflies are out consuming other insects.
Yeah.
So
especially the mosquitoes that we've had.
They're great predators. So we've actually got a couple that like to just hang out in our yard, and it's always in the late afternoon when the sun's kind of coming in from the west, and you get this kind of warm glow in the air, and they can see the bugs flying around. So we've got a couple trellises that they'll just kind of perch on the top of the trellises
and just watch
for the little bugs to come in, and you'll just see them just like dart off of the trellis, and they'll go eat one, and they'll come back and then they'll perch again, and then they'll like dart out and grab another one. And so they're just eating bugs like crazy. And so they're very beneficial and really, really helpful. Of course, the grasshoppers are not eating other bugs; they're eating everything else.
And my daughter asked me, she goes, well, do the dragonflies eat grasshoppers? And I said, no, that's a little too big for them, unfortunately. But
and praying mantis will eat grasshoppers if they're smaller than they are, and so that's a possibility. But they can't eat that many grasshoppers.
Yeah, there are so many grasshoppers right now.
So praying mantids are not a great option right now for controlling grasshoppers, because there's 1,000 times more grasshoppers than there are praying mantis out there. So they just they can't stay on top of it. But we have had really great control on the aphids with the ladybugs this year and with the lacewings. And so I was talking to somebody, in fact, yesterday about lacewings and how they'll kind of stay more in your yard and consume a lot of smaller insects that the ladybugs won't eat. So ladybugs will eat aphids like crazy. In fact, they eat upwards of 50 aphids a day. Each ladybug.
50 of them.
50. So each ladybug will eat 50 aphids a day. But the lacewings, they will eat leafhoppers, they'll eat thrips, they'll eat whiteflies, they'll eat all kinds of different insects. And so the lacewings are not as volatile either. They don't fly away like the ladybugs do if there's not enough food in your yard. Ladybugs will just migrate and go somewhere else. The lacewings, their lifespan is much shorter, and so they will reproduce a lot faster. And so if you get lacewings going in your yard, then they will lay eggs, and then they'll just have a new generation every couple of weeks of new lacewings, and they kind of stay put. They stay more they're more stable in your yard. They don't fly away as easily because their lifespan's so short, and so they eat insects like crazy.
Okay.
Very, very, very effective way to get various insects under control in your yard. But we are dealing with grasshoppers still. So got a lot of people almost on a daily basis. We've got 7 out of 10 people coming in with grasshopper issues. And the rain doesn't seem to have slowed them down.
No, in fact, exactly the opposite. And I can only imagine you're probably selling 7 and other pesticides by the case now.
Yes. So we've got some really great options for grasshoppers still. So if you're applying to edibles, so fruits or vegetables, your options are permethrin, so like the indoor-outdoor from High Yield. You've also got 7, which is excellent, and we've been selling a lot of Sayonara as well, too. So these are some newer generation insecticides that are very, very safe to use on edibles, so fruits and vegetables. You can use it on most of those things right up to 24 to 48 hours before you're harvesting. So like we picked beans last week. As soon as we were done picking the beans, then I sprayed for insects through the garden because I kind of had most everything picked, and put my repellent down. And we really haven't had hardly any grasshoppers come back. Just knocked all those down. But the repellent's non-toxic, so we can use that anytime. But where we did the spray, we're usually picking the beans again 3 days later. And so 3 days later, you can just like pick the beans, rinse them off, eat them, and you're good to go, because it's been longer than the 24 to 48 hours from the application of the insecticide. So very, very safe that way. If you need something a little more potent, want to knock them down a little bit faster, you could do Bug Blaster. Bug Blaster from High Yield is really a great option for the grasshoppers, especially if you know where they're coming from. They're coming from that vacant lot next door, from the field out back, and you just know where those grasshoppers are coming from. I'll go out there and do a heavier treatment in those areas where you know they're migrating from that adjacent property, and really does a great job at knocking them down before they get to your garden, because it just doesn't really do a great job waiting for them to come, and they'll start to do a lot of damage before you can really get those under control. And then we got a new bait in this week, so it's called Nyban, and so the Nyban is all organic. It's made from boric acid. It's very effective on crickets and grasshoppers and a lot of other insects as well too. It's used by professional exterminators quite frequently because it's so safe to use indoors as well as out. But with this bait, it's actually resistant to rain. And so even with our torrential rain this week, the Nyban would have held up really well if you'd applied it. It's good for, really, it can handle about 6 inches of rainwater. And so it could have handled our storms this week and still been very effective for the grasshoppers. And they're attracted to it. They'll eat it. Once they consume the bait, then it kills them as well, too. It doesn't matter how big they are, if they're big or small. The bigger grasshoppers eat more, so if they eat more bait, then it'll take care of them. So it's called Nyban. And Nyban. Okay. Very safe to use. You can't use it in vegetables. It's not labeled for use in and around in vegetables, but you could definitely use it around your garden and try and prevent them from getting into your garden. Great for use around the house as well too. So a very, very effective bait that we just got in, that we have been trying to get for a couple weeks, couple months actually. So it's not the Nolo bait. Nolo bait's different. That's probably going to be next year before we can get the Nolo bait again. So they just have had trouble with their production. So
So in addition to insects, taking your calls this morning about all things in your garden, your lawn, 753-5868, 1-800-369-5868. You know, with all of the moisture that we've had come down right now, it's a great time, especially as we look ahead, maybe to throw down some fertilizer, especially on your lawn. Your lawn has just really gone through a last couple of weeks of very hot temperatures and dry conditions, and now with that ground being so saturated, great time to fertilize.
Perfect time for fertilizing. In fact, we've had a lot of homeowners in this week thinking the same thing. It's like, oh, if I could just get this on between rainstorms, it'll be perfect. And we just happened to get our lawn mowed this week before the storms rolled in, so it was like perfect timing. But application of fertilizer latter part of July, first part of August is perfect, because you can get a slow release nitrogen on there, a little bit of iron, a little bit of sulfur. It'll green your lawn up like crazy. So lawns were stressing a little bit, so we've been adding a little humate to it. So a humate with a slow release fertilizer like Greenmaker from Fertilome would be wonderful. Our 23-316 from Anderson's would be excellent as well too, because they have that extra 5% iron in there. Really, really green the lawn up, make it look good. But they both have a high dose of sulfur in there, which is great because it lowers the pH of the soil, frees the other nutrient up, makes it available to the grass. So the sulfur is really good for turf as well too. So slow release fertilizer, little humate to help the grass recover from the stress of the summer, and really helps with water absorption and retention as well too. So really helps with a lot of different things. Great time to fertilize.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go out to the phone lines. Our first caller on the Garden Guide on this Saturday morning. Neil's joining us on the line. Neil, welcome to the show.
Thank you. How are you today?
Doing great this morning, yeah.
Thanks for taking my call. I have a couple of quick questions for you. I have, it's the stump of an old Russian elm tree that's been in our yard for a few years, and it's developing like a black fungus growing around the base of it. I'm wondering if you can kind of give me an idea what that is and what to do about it.
So is the tree alive, or did you cut the tree down and it's just a stump now?
It's just a stump.
It's just the stump. So it once those trees are dead, they'll just start to decompose a little bit, and when that happens, there's natural fungus that will get in there and kind of speed up that decomposition as well too. So there's a possibility that's what's going on. You've got some natural fungal growth as that stump starts to break down. A lot of times we'll see mushrooms come up in areas where there's a root system of a tree that has been cut down, and as the root system decomposes, you'll get mushrooms and toadstools that pop up in those areas as well too. So that's kind of a natural process with that elm. It's fairly hard wood, so it's going to stick around for a while. So,
is that something that I want to try to get rid of? Should I just let it run its course, or should I be concerned about it?
It's probably not going to spread to any other plants. It's just going to stay there. You could speed up the decomposition of that stump if you wanted to use a stump remover on it. It'll make it break down a lot faster, and then you can get rid of it. Maybe plant something else back in that vicinity of where that tree used to be. But you shouldn't have any problems with that spreading to other plants.
Okay. And then one quick question about your most favorite subject, grasshoppers.
Yes.
Did they cycle, like every few years, every other year? Is there kind of like a rhyme or reason as to what to expect from year to year now?
I don't know if there is a process that happens. Every 3 years we're going to have a higher population of grasshoppers. I think it just has a lot to do with weather conditions and growing conditions and what their food source is, and really kind of how long the season was. So we had a really long season last year, started early, stayed longer. I think the grasshoppers ended up laying a lot more eggs, and then we had a really wet year and a wet spring, and so all those eggs hatched. So there's a possibility that this year, since our season is shorter, maybe they won't lay as many eggs, and there won't be nearly as many for next year. But populations are huge right now, and I'm afraid we're going to probably have a lot of grasshoppers again next year as well too. So we'll see. I don't know if there's rhyme or reason to it. I think there's just kind of specific conditions that if they're met, then you just tend to have higher populations or lower populations depending on how that works.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
You're so welcome, Neil. Have a wonderful
nice day.
Yeah, have a wonderful weekend.
Now, you bring up a good question as Neil was talking about a stump. I know a neighbor of mine was asking if he could borrow my chainsaw and myself to come over and knock down a tree. And we took that right down to the ground, and he said, well, I'm just going to leave it there. And I thought, man, that's going to be there a long time.
It takes a while. Yeah.
And so using a stump remover, how fast does that speed up the process?
So first off, once you cut it down, you want to treat the trunk with an herbicide that will kill the root system out. Otherwise, you could have suckers coming up. And so especially with the elm, you cut that off. If you don't treat it, you're going to have little elm suckers popping up. And quakies and poplars are very well known for their ability to send up suckers everywhere. Yeah. And so you would definitely want to use an herbicide. So we've got a brush and stump killer, which you can put undiluted right on the fresh cut of the stump. Usually we'll recommend you treat the first inch all the way around the outside, where the bark is attached to the trunk. That's the best place to do it. So you want to treat that first inch all the way around, and then it'll absorb that in and run it down through the root system and kill the root system out so you don't have it coming back. And then once it's dead, sometimes that'll take a couple weeks. Once it's dead, then with the stump remover, that's a different material entirely. You'll drill holes into the stump, and then you'll put the stump remover into those holes and then water it so it will get down into the wood of the stump, and it will speed up the decomposition of that stump. And it can take a couple years still, but once that gets in there, it will start to break that tissue of the stump down much, much faster. And then once it starts to deteriorate, it's a lot easier to rip it out if you want to throw a chain on it and jerk it out, or if you've got somebody with the track hoe that can pull that out. Once it's dead and once it's starting to decompose, it will come out much, much easier than if you try and rip it out the day that you cut the tree down, and those roots are still alive and they're hanging on and they just don't want to go. It's hard to pull trees out when they're still alive.
Yeah, Yeah. Yeah, they just do not want to give up.
Very difficult. So we've got phone lines open. You are welcome to call in and join our conversation. We're talking about weeds and grasshoppers and fall crops. It's a really great time to plant grass seed. And with all this moisture, we really need to talk about powdery mildew and some various diseases that we're dealing with in the gardens, and we're going to be dealing with in the gardens here shortly. So phone lines are open, 753-5868, 753-KVNU, and also 1-800-369-5868. We'd love to have you join us here on the show. Yeah, for sure.
And coming up in just a minute, we'll be right back. I'll talk about the fall cash sale also going on at Anderson Seed and Garden. You're listening to The Garden Guide here on KVNU.
Walter, KBNU News. Well, it happened late Friday. University of Oregon announced they are moving from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten Conference. Board trustees voted Friday to accept an invitation from the Coast to Coast Conference. The Big Ten earlier in the day cleared the way for both Oregon and its Pacific Northwest rival, Washington, to join the league. The Ducks were the first to make it official. The two schools are set to become the 17th and 18th members of the Big Ten next year, and the 3rd and 4th on the West Coast. This most certainly puts the Pac-12 into serious possibilities of disintegration. No official word yet from the University of Utah, who is being courted, according to media reports, by the Big 12 Conference. A 39-year-old Providence man accused of downloading hundreds of child pornography files has waived his right to a preliminary hearing. Chad David Hubbard was arrested January 24th after police reportedly seized more than 850 images and videos at his home. According to court records, Hubbard appeared last Monday in First District Court in Logan for a preliminary hearing where a judge would have determined whether or not to bind the suspect over for trial. He was previously charged with 14 counts of sexual exploitation of a minor, a second-degree felony. After waiving the hearing, defense attorney Ray Maloof entered pleas of not guilty to the charges. He asked for time to continue negotiating the case with prosecutors. Pretty nice weekend ahead of us with highs in the low to mid 80s. Slight chance of a shower, especially along the Utah-Idaho border. But other than that, pretty fair weather all weekend long. For the latest news, visit CashValleyDaily.com.
From ABC Sports, I'm Mark Remillard. The NL West leading Dodgers tallying their 6th win in a row last night, visiting the Padres. Down a run in the 8th inning, L.A. took advantage of a Padres bullpen meltdown.
Rosario grounds it up the first base line into the right field corner. Hayward scores. Taylor scores. Arriving at third is Rojas. And the Dodgers tack on a couple of more runs.
AM 570 LA Sports on that call. The single capping off a 5-run inning to make it 7-3. Dodgers would win it 10-5. On the opposite coast in Miami, the Rangers visiting the Marlins. Adolis Garcia showcased his power.
Here he lifts one high into the air, deep left center. Garcia going back, looking up. It is gone into the second deck.
The call on 105.3 The Fan, Garcia's second homer of the game. Rangers win their 4th straight, 6-2. This is ABC's
The Above and Beyond Salute.
Hello? Is this Darren Hall?
It is.
I understand you're a school janitor at the elementary school. How many years have you been a janitor at Wellsville Elementary?
Wellsville, I've been there 6 years, but I've been doing it for the school district for almost 16.
Man, I bet you've cleaned a lot of gum under desks, haven't you, in those 16 years?
More than my share, I would say, yeah.
Well, Darren, hey, to pay you back, I've got a $40 gift card to Firehouse Subs.
Well, thank you. That is awesome.
The Above and Beyond Salute, sponsored by Firehouse Subs on News Talk KVNU. The expert with a green thumb. It's The Garden Guide on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
And we welcome you back to the show, 8:34 now on this Saturday morning. Will Feelright along with Mark Anderson of Anderson Seed and Garden, enjoying a little cooler temperatures this morning. It's sitting right now,
nice.
59.
Yeah, so nice outside.
Looking forward to mid-80s this weekend. It'll be so nice. You don't have to run the air conditioner. You can just enjoy keeping the windows open and Yeah, it's definitely a reward for those 100-degree temperatures and high 90s.
Do not have to worry about watering the lawn or watering the garden for at least another 4 days, if not longer. But you may have to mow the lawn.
Yeah, and you may have to weed the garden.
Yeah, the weeds are just going crazy.
They
I
are.
had just kind of gotten all the weeds out of my garden, just like I've been kind of pecking away at it, really got the weeds under control, and then it's rained all week, and they're gonna be everywhere.
Yeah, at least they were last night when I was looking in our garden. So that's going to be the project for today,
but
for sure.
Cucumbers are coming on like crazy, so we're picking cucumbers, and the beans have been amazing. So beans and cucumbers are coming on. Our corn's still a little bit off, but I know we picked up some corn over in Brigham City, so there's growers that are ready. And I think we had a little bit at Anderson's yesterday. Some local growers had some early corn. So we've had some corn available as well too. Cantaloupes are really close, and we've been harvesting tomatoes like crazy.
Okay.
Yeah, still have blossom end rot though. Didn't get to put my calcium on this week. Dang it! Every time I went to go use it would rain.
Oh.
every chance I had this week to go do it, it's like, oh,
Couldn't
it's
do
gonna
it.
rain. Dang it! All right, so we'll do it tomorrow. Oh, it rained again. Okay, I'll do it tomorrow.
Well, if you missed it earlier in the show, we were talking about the fall cash and carry sale that's going on right now as we're heading towards the fall months. Cash and carry sale underway already, where you can save 15 to 25% off a lot of trees, shrubs, and everything else in the greenhouse.
And it's a great time to plant since it is cooler, and we're encroaching on fall weather, and it's a perfect time to plant trees and shrubs. And at Anderson's, we've got a really great selection of evergreens and shade trees, flowering trees, fruit trees, especially. Fruit trees look amazing right now, and a lot of shrubs and vines as well too. They're all on sale for 15% off, but if you pay with cash, you can get that extra 10% off and save yourself 25%. So you want to bring in cash and take advantage of a lot of the great deals that we have and the amazing plants that we have in stock that are looking for a new home. They want to populate your yard, and best way to cool down your yard is to get some trees growing, and helps clean the air and really improves our environment here in Cache Valley. So great way to add to our environmental cleanup as well too. So those trees do a great job at producing oxygen and cleaning all kinds of cooties out of the air.
And great time to be able to plant right now.
Yeah, it really is. So with the cash sale, the way it works is you traditionally, we've got 15% off on all the plants right now. So if you pay with a debit card or a check or a credit card, you'll get 15% off. But if you pay with cash, you'll get that extra 10%, and therefore you get the 25% discount on the plants that we have left over in the store. So with all the moisture, though, we've definitely got diseases cropping up, and the monsoonal moisture that we deal with end of July through August really kicks up powdery mildew on trees. So we've seen a lot on maples already. 9 barks get mildew. There's a lot of perennials that are prone to getting mildew. But in the vegetable garden, the biggest culprits would be pumpkins, squashes, melons, cucumbers. They get powdery mildew really easily, and with the higher humidity that we're dealing with and the warmer temperatures and then cooler nights, for sure, we're seeing a lot of diseases popping up on those plants. And the best way to take care of that is to prevent it before it starts to happen. So conditions are perfect for it. This week we have perfect conditions for mildews to take off, whether it's a downy mildew or a powdery mildew. We're going to start seeing those, and they will kill your plants off in just a couple of weeks. And we would like to see those squashes, melons, cucumbers continue to produce for the next month and a half at least. So if you don't want to see your plants gradually die off due to mildew, now is the time to prevent with a good fungicide. And there are some really great options out there that you can use very safely right up to the day that you're going to harvest your fruits as well too. So my zucchinis are just starting to take off like crazy. We got them planted a little bit late, and they're just taking off like crazy, and I don't want to see them die off before they really are producing for us. So complete disease control from Monterey. The copper soap from Fertilome is excellent. The fungicide 5 from Fertilome, also really a great option. And not only will they take care of mildews, but they'll also take care of like bacterial speck and black spot that show up on the tomatoes. So tomatoes regularly are picking up diseases when we have these kind of weather conditions. And so great for the tomatoes. In fact, I was going to mix up some fungicide 5. I was going to put some calcium in with it. So I was going to do either a Yield Booster from Fertilome or the CalMag from Fox Farm, because they've got calcium and magnesium in there to really help with the blossom end rot. And I was going to spray my tomatoes. I was going to spray the peppers, and then I was going to spray all the pumpkins and squashes and melons and cucumbers as well too. So hopefully we will not have a half an inch of rain again tonight, and I'm going to get out there and I'm going to spray. And I'm going to spray those plants.
Get it done today.
Going to get those plants sprayed, because really the conditions that we're dealing with right now are perfect for these types of diseases to really spread and to really take off. Higher humidity, lots of moisture, hot days, cool nights, and they're going to just take off like crazy. So
well, and we were talking about insects in the last segment, but we ought to come back and just hit on right now, too. I've noticed a lot of corn in our neighborhood starting to tassel.
Yeah.
So if you haven't sprayed your corn right now, it's a great time to get that corn sprayed so that we keep codling moth out.
Oh, not the codling moth.
Not the codling moth.
It's the corn earworms. Corn earworms. If they're tasseling and you've got those silks forming on the ears, that's when the earworms really, really get after them. So the moths will come in and they'll lay their eggs right on the silks of the corn. And then when those eggs hatch out, they just like find those silks, and they will follow the silk just like a little beacon. And they'll just follow it right
down
into the corn, and then there's like plenty for them to nibble on in there. So then they just like start munching on the corn. And then when you open your ears, and then you've got worms in there, and they're not little anymore. They're now large, and they've been
just disgusting. I mean, you can
themselves
still eat the corn. You just have to cut that area out, but
it's less than attractive, and it makes it less than exciting to eat the corn, because you've had somebody else that's already been nibbling on it as well too. But good time to prevent those as well too. And also, if your corn's coming along like mine is, it's really taken off with the weather last little bit. So mine's like 3 feet tall. It's time to fertilize it again. So I hit it when it was about 8 to 12 inches tall with a straight nitrogen fertilizer. Now it's 3 feet tall. I'm going to hit it again, and when it really starts to tassel, we'll do one more application on it. So the corn's looking really, really great in my garden right now, and so time for a little bit more fertilizer, since it's a very heavy nitrogen feeder. It's a good time to get on top of that. So not too bad.
One of the things we did this last week was hit our raspberries really good. We have neglected them for a couple years, and we're not coming on very strong in this past year. We went out really early, fertilized them really good, took a mulch and mixed it with actually the fruit and plant food from Fertilome.
Oh yeah,
mixed that all together, and we used a whole bag on our raspberries.
On your raspberries.
We just soaked that in, and they just took off. But now we're wanting to maintain that, and so we just went down and put a little treatment of iron and watered that in really good again.
Perfect.
This last week, and so great time to just fertilize those plants as they've gone through some very hot temperatures.
We should see really good production on the raspberries for fall, since a lot of people had so much damage through the winter time. They ended up trimming the raspberries down shorter, and so we didn't get as good of a summer crop. And so they've been a little I wouldn't say scarce, but just not as productive this year. But we should get a great fall crop off of those everbearing raspberries.
Well, I've noticed the buds that are coming on right now, and that's probably the largest number of buds that we've had on those plants in years.
Oh, it makes a huge difference when you get a little bit of fertilizer out there. You'll get lots more growth, and where you get new growth on the raspberries, that's where all the flower production is. And so you want to always encourage a lot of new growth on the raspberries, because that's where your flower production is going to be, and that's where your fruit production is going to be also. And iron. They're almost always iron deficient, and so we've seen trees and shrubs and flowers and all kinds of plants, especially raspberries, that are really iron deficient this year. So a lot of gardeners have had to supplement their gardens and yards with chelated iron to really kind of correct that problem.
Yeah, spruce them up. Yeah. Well, we're taking your calls this morning for the Garden Guide, 753-5868 if you have a question for Mark, or 1-800-369-5868. And, we were mentioning earlier that even though we are still in the middle of summer, it's not like we're wanting to jump ahead to fall too quickly. But right now, as we look ahead, it is a good time to start looking at those fall crops that we can put in.
Absolutely. So I did not plant many spring crops in our garden, because by the time our garden finally dried out, it was time to just really start doing the tender thing. So we planted all of our tender crops, because it was right after Mother's Day when we planted all those tender crops, and we just kind of skipped over. We just kind of skipped over the spring crops. But now there is plenty of time to get those spring crops planted for some fall crops. So we're talking lettuce, spinach, kale, mustards, and they love the cold temperatures. But then you could do cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, peas. Those are all great crops to plant in early August, so that you'll be harvesting those in September and October. So most of those leafy greens, they only take about 45 days to be ready to harvest. And so you plant now, and then latter part of September, you're harvesting and utilizing those throughout the latter part of September through October. And then you also have peas that would be coming on in 60 days from when you plant them, and the Brussels sprouts and the broccoli, they really produce great through the fall, and they can handle all those cold temperatures. I think last year we were picking our broccoli until almost Halloween, and just kept producing and producing. So great way to supplement your garden that maybe you couldn't put those early crops in this year. You can definitely do it this fall.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely do it this fall.
Let's go back out to the phone lines. We have Beth joining us on the line. Beth, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I was just wondering, when is the best time to move starts from one plant to somewhere else?
What kind of plants?
Like the low-growing lilies.
Oh, so like lilies. Right now, a lot of people are doing like their iris and their peonies. It's a really good time to move peonies and iris. Latter part of July, first part of August. Perfect time for those. And then for most of your other perennials, whether they're perennial bulbs like the lilies, or hostas or columbines or anything else, usually fall is a great time to move those. So we'll wait until September, and as those plants kind of finish blooming, we'll trim them down, maybe leave 3 to 4 inches of stems left on there so you can see where the plants are. And that's a really good time to dig those up and transplant those to new locations. And in many cases, you can divide the plants as well too. So when you get big clusters of columbines, or really big clusters of say, echinacea, coneflowers or rudbeckia, you can dig those up, kind of divide them where the stems are all coming up, and split them, and then transplant those to newer locations as well too. I'd probably wait till September though to do that. That should work great, Beth.
I think we answered your call, Beth. Thank you so much for the call this morning. That opens up a phone line at 753-5868 or 1-800-369-5868. Still plenty of time to take your calls here on the Garden Guide.
Yeah, we do. We've got 10 minutes left.
Yeah,
we could get a couple calls in.
Yeah. So and if someone was just joining us, we want to give a little plug for some of the things that are going to be happening in September coming up down on Main Street, or on Center Street.
Yeah, a lot
front of Anderson.
A lot of great activities happening. So with the students coming back, I know they'll be doing the Taste of Logan the end of August, which is always kind of fun, but that's kind of geared towards all the new students coming in. But we wanted to do something fall related, but before Halloween. And so we've been kind of mulling this idea over for a couple of years, and it's finally starting to come together this year. And so we're planning on the Center Street Giant Pumpkin Festival, and that's going to be the 23rd of September. So it's coming up in about 7 weeks. And at that festival, we're going to be weighing all the giant pumpkins. So this is the official way off for the northern part of Utah, and there'll be growers coming from southern Idaho, from Wyoming, and from all parts of Utah to come and weigh their giant pumpkins here. Now, last year they had it at a different location. I think it was at Thanksgiving Point, and they had 25 pumpkins ranging from 500 to 1,800 pounds. And it's really fun to see all those big pumpkins all together. So we'll have a pumpkin walk where you can go in and check out all the big pumpkins as they're getting weighed, and they'll weigh all those pumpkins and do that official weigh off right there on Center Street. And it's not just pumpkins that they do; they have other categories as well too. So they do like a couple different categories for gourds. They've got the biggest watermelon, largest tomato. So they're doing a whole bunch of other categories as well too. And then the pumpkin growers themselves get to vote for the best looking pumpkin, and that's called the Howard Dill Award, and that's named after Howard Dill, who was kind of not the inventor of the giant pumpkins, but it was kind of like
one of the pioneers
of growing giant pumpkins.
Pumpkin
yeah, that's where Dill's Atlantic Giant came from, is from Howard Dill. So that's an award that's given by all the growers. They all vote for their what they think is the best looking pumpkin. But we're going to do a People's Choice Award as well too. So everyone who comes and checks out the pumpkins will be able to vote for like their favorite one as well too. So that will be pretty cool. But a lot of different activities going on Center Street. So we'll have kids activities, we'll have vendors, we'll have food trucks, we'll have artists creating art all along the sidewalks there on Center Street, and there'll be a movie at the Utah Theater. The city will be doing the ribbon cutting for the plaza. There'll be some live music there at the plaza, and after the pumpkin growers are done and have given out all their awards, we'll have live music there on Center Street as well too, and just a lot of great things going on Center Street for the Giant Pumpkin Festival, where we will crown the first ever Center Street Giant. So the biggest pumpkin, the one that weighs the most, will get the award for the Center Street Giant.
It's going to be a
that
great
should be
time.
Really fun. Yeah,
a lot of fun.
We're really looking
September
forward to it.
23rd. Of course, Center Street will be closed a couple weeks in a row because the week before that you'll have the Top of Utah Marathon.
Yep, the
so,
marathon.
Just a fun time to head down to Center Street those couple of weekends and just enjoy all of the festivities.
On that weekend, there's so much going on here in Logan. So we've got the Gardeners Market will be going, the ribbon cutting for the plaza, the pumpkin growers. So those will have the Giant Pumpkin Festival. The Vintage Market is going as well that weekend. And then there's a USU football game also. So it should be later in the evening, I would suspect. Yeah, so lots and lots of fun things happening that weekend in September. Should be a blast.
Kind of watch for that on the calendar. Yep. September 23rd. Let's go back out to the phone lines. Kathy's joining us on the line. Welcome to the show, Kathy.
Thank you. I have tried to grow raspberries out of my garden, and they have failed miserably. I wonder, and I've taken them all out almost. And I've wondered, is there something I can do to prepare the soil so that it will take raspberry plants and actually grow?
Absolutely. The raspberries do not like heavier clay soils, so whatever you can do to amend the soil so it's lighter and looser and fluffier, the raspberries will perform a lot better. They like well-drained soil, so they don't like soggy soil either, and they like to be watered very thoroughly, just maybe once a week once they get established. So they don't need a lot of water, but they really don't like those heavy soils. So what we will usually recommend is that if you're going to amend that soil, don't use steer manures, because the steer manure can bring in diseases that will directly affect the raspberries. And so poultry manures are much better if you want to use poultry, and anything to loosen that soil up. So zeolite would be great, and coconut coir, and composted manures that are poultry manures instead of the steer manure. Those would be great to add in there and loosen that soil up. So any type of soil amendment, some very finely ground bark. I really like the soil building conditioner that we bring in because it's got a finely ground redwood bark, the poultry manure, bat guano, worm castings, kelp meal. It's really great to prep your if you're doing raised beds, or if you're doing like just a traditional raspberry patch. That would be excellent. Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Okay, a question about that. I happen to have bats We have a bat house at our house.
Yeah.
And we have the droppings underneath the bat house. Could I put those out there? Would that be bad for the soil?
Nope. The bat guano is amazing. It's one of the best fertilizers ever. And so so I would definitely use that. And you could supplement your other amendments with it. The zeolite will really, really help. So I would highly recommend you get some zeolite or Eudolite in there, because that will keep the soil from compacting, and it will help hold and retain moisture, and it never breaks down since it's volcanic rock. It will stay there indefinitely. So it's a really great way to loosen up clay soils, and definitely use your organic matter as well too. So peat moss, the soil conditioners, the coconut coir would be excellent, just to lighten and loosen that soil up, and your raspberries will respond accordingly.
Okay, because we're going to try it again next year. I thought maybe I'll work on it this summer. If we have summer. We have summer left.
Exactly. I transplanted some raspberries again this year, and they just struggled because it just turned too warm. By the time I could get them planted, it just turned too warm too fast, so they didn't do amazing. But each year I keep adding a few to what we've got going, and they're slow going, but they're coming along. So we're kind of in the same boat.
All right, that's what I needed to know. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Kathy. You have a wonderful weekend.
You too.
All right,
bye-bye.
We'll see you.
Still time to take a couple calls left, 753-5868 or 1-800-369-5868. And I guess we should probably add to Kathy's question, once you get those raspberries started, it's all about fertilizing.
Yes.
As we were talking about earlier, raspberries, they love fertilizer. They need iron.
Iron, sulfur, and nitrogen are the key elements that the raspberries really need. So usually we'll use a product like... it's the Iron Plus from High Yield, because it has a nice dose of nitrogen in there. It has about 16% sulfur and 19% iron in there with the nitrogen as well too. So it provides the iron, the acidification, and the nitrogen to really get them growing and looking really good. So good option. Good option.
All right, and Katie's joining us on the line now. Katie, welcome to the show.
Hey, I've been listening to you talk about planting peas and things later in the year. I'm just wondering, is it a different kind of pea, or is it the same thing I plant in the spring, and will it be as sweet?
Same varieties you plant in the spring, and where they are maturing in cooler temperatures instead of maturing when it's really hot, they're actually going to taste better than they would if you plant them in the spring. Yeah.
I've never known that. I'm excited to try.
Yeah. So 60 days is what it takes on the piece. So once you plant it, like if you plant it today, and today's the 5th of August, you'll have it probably by the 30th of September, maybe that first week of October, and they'll be amazing. They'll be awesome. So snap peas, regular peas, sugar peas, you can do all of those.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You are welcome. Good luck, Katie.
All right, so just a couple, let's see, 2 minutes left here now on the Garden Guide.
Probably not enough time to get another phone call in.
Yeah, it's gone by quick. Do want to mention, though, if people were not listening earlier and just joining the show now, cash and carry sale going on right now.
Yes,
Henderson.
We just got in last week an amazing crop of fruit trees. So the fruit trees look awesome. There's peaches, there's nectarines, there's apricots, there's cherries, there's plums, and apples and pears, and they look amazing. They're in 7-gallon containers. They are mostly 7 to 8 feet tall, so they're really, really good-looking trees. And so if you've been looking for some fruit trees for fall, this is your time to get them, and they're on sale as well, too. So with our cash sale going right now, it's all of our remaining trees, shrubs, evergreens, and vines. They're all on sale for 15% off, and if you pay with cash, you get an extra 10% on top of that, so you can get 25% off on our remaining trees and shrubs. So it's a great deal. It's a good way for us to clear out our nursery and make some room for some new stuff for next year as well, too. So come take advantage of that cash sale, and we'll be running it for all this weekend, and we'll probably do next week as well. Next week as well too. So great time to plant fall crops. Watch out for powdery mildew. It's a really great time to plant grass. So if you're trying to get some new grass going, it's a really, really good time to get some new grass planted or supplement your existing grass if you want to get some new varieties in there as well too. And it has rained you said 2 inches this week, 2 inches of rain this week. We do not need to water for another week.
No. And that's just here at the radio stations. I know some areas got a lot more than that.
Yeah, they got more. But we turned our sprinklers off earlier this week, and we will keep them off until probably at least Wednesday or Thursday of next week, depending on what the weather does again. But, turn those sprinklers off. You do not need to water for another week. Yeah, another week.
All right.
You should be good.
Well, we thank everyone for joining us for the Garden Guide on this Saturday morning. As always, you can check out the Garden Guide anytime at our podcast section at kvnutalk.com, and we'll be back again next week.
News Talk KVNU. Logan, the voice of